Okay, so now we are ready to build our app. So to do that, we're just going to start a new project by selecting new project. And with Android Studio, we have a lot of different templates that we can use depending on the type of application that we're building. So for instance, we can build a phone and tablet app using these templates. We can also build an app for the Wear OS or the Google Watch. We can build something for an Android TV. We can even build something for Android Auto or the Android that is used in the cars. But for our first app, we're going to build a phone and tablet app. And as you can see, we have a lot of different templates that we can use. So for instance, if we were building an app that uses maps heavily, we'll select something like this. But in our case, we want to build an empty activity. So select empty activity and then hit next. We're going to have to give our application a name. And since this is our first application, I think the most suitable name would be my first application. This is the same name that would be displayed at the bottom of your app icon on your device or in the App Store. And the package name here just has to be a unique name or a unique identifier. So this package name has been generated for us, but you can always modify it if you please. So typically, if you have a website, this package name would be your website name, and then the last part would be the name of your app. So let's use this Android Studio websites as an example. The package name in this case will be the reverse of the website name. So this will be com.android.developer. So since we don't have a website, we can leave this as is. It should be fine. Or if you want to make this more unique, you can replace example with your first name or your developer name. I'm happy with the save location. So the language we're going to select here, instead of Kotlin, we're going to select Java. That's the main language that we're going to be programming in. And for minimum SDK, this specifies the lowest Android version that you want your app to support. To give you a better understanding, you can click Help Choose. And here you can see several different Android versions, okay? The lower the Android version, the more devices that are able to run it or are supported. And then the higher the Android version, the fewer devices that are supported. So you might be wondering, why not just select the lowest Android version so that you can support almost all the devices in the world? So the issue with that is that the lower the Android version, the fewer features or the older the features are going to be. And the more recent Android versions have the most new cool features. And if you're curious, you can always see the specific features here. So when developing an app, we want to support the most devices possible, but at the same time, supporting the most current features as possible. So personally, I like to choose a number or a percentage that is around 90%. So in that case, I'm going to select Oreo. Okay, so about 90% of the Android devices in the world could run my app. So that should be fine. Let's go ahead and click Finish. So now it's just going to download some tools that is related to the minimum SDK version that I selected. Okay, so I hit Finish. You just have to give it a moment for it to finish building this template. And I can see the progress here. Okay, finally, the most time-consuming part of our setup is complete. So as time goes on, I'm going to explain the different sections that you see here on our screen. But for now, focus on these two tabs over here. You'll find that we have one called the main activity and then the activity main. So when you click this activity main file, you'll see a view like this. So in Android, we have two main parts of a typical app. The first part is the view, which is what you see on your Android screen, which is the design that is presented to you as the user. And then we have the activity, which is the code that is running in the background, which controls the view that the user sees on your screen. We'll go into much more detail about activities later, but for now, you can think about it as the back end or the engine that powers our front end design. Just to give us a little bit more room, we can close this tab right here, the What's New tab, by just clicking this hide icon. And you'll notice that we have two screens here. So the left side is the actual design, how the user will see it. And then the right side is the blueprints view or the wireframe view. As we add more things to this screen or this view, the relationship between these two will start to make more sense. All right, so the last thing we need to do to finalize our Android Studio setup is to add a virtual device. So this is the device that we are going to be testing our app on. So right now, as you can see here, we have no devices. So to create a device, we can open our device manager either by clicking this drop down and then clicking device manager, or we can quickly click this icon here to take us to the device manager. Okay, so now that we're here, you'll see a create device button. So we'll just go ahead and click that. So as you can see, there are several different devices or virtual devices that we can create. But for our first app, we're going to use a Pixel 5. Feel free to select any device you want, but for me, I'm using the Pixel 5. So I'm going to hit next. And now we have to specify the version of Android that is going to be running on our device. So for me, on my Pixel 5, I'm going to have Android 10 running on that. And keep in mind that as long as the Android version number is greater than Android 8.1, we should be fine. Because we specify that the minimum Android version support that our application will provide is Android 8.1. Now that I have my version selected, I'm going to hit next. And keep in mind that if that is the first time you are using that Android version, it might take a while to download. But once it's done, we can provide a device name. For me, I'm just going to keep it as is. This should be fine. And then I'll hit finish. All right, so my virtual device has been created here. Let's turn on this virtual device by launching it using this play button here. And then we'll give it a minute to launch. So now we have our very own virtual device And so let's go ahead and run our app or test our app on this virtual device. So to launch our app, we're just going to hit this green play button here. Okay, perfect. There we go. The app launched without any issues. But now you'll realize that we're starting to have a lot of different things on our screen, and our workspace is starting to look a little congested. So this will be a good time to go over some of these things that you see on the screen. So to the left here, this is our projects view. Okay, so all the files that we open here can be accessed from this projects view over here. So essentially, this is the file system or the folders that we're accessing the files from. And in the center here, these are the open files. Like I mentioned before, we have two files open, the main activity, and then we also have the view. And to the right here, we have our device or our emulator. And if you notice, when we launched our app, all these logs here were produced. So essentially, at the bottom of the screen is where you will typically see any type of logs. So if there's an error that is produced in our app, you'll typically see the error message somewhere here at the bottom of the screen. And keep in mind that all of these sections can be rearranged. And you'll notice that we have some highlighted tabs here. So if you see that a tab is highlighted, it essentially means that it's open. So we can close the tab by just simply clicking on it, just like this. So by clicking on this, I can open and close our project view. Right now, we don't need the device manager since we've already created the device. So I can go ahead and close this. And I'm going to resize our log section just so that I can make the device a little bit bigger. So now our development environment looks less congested. Okay, so now let's focus on this app right here. So we didn't actually write any code yet. Everything that we're seeing here is just part of the template that was provided to us by Android Studio. Okay, so now let's look at the code. So in Android, we have a method called onCreate. So when the app launches or when the activity gets created, this is the method that would run. It's kind of like the main method in Java. It's the first method that runs when the activity is launched. And this line of code right here is what connects the design or the view here to our activity or to this code. So we are setting the view to this file right here, which is the activity main file. So far that's all our code does, which is not that interesting. So let's add some more interesting content to our design here.